All right, guys, so it's Andrew here from My Market Inspector as usual, and we're going to jump in and talk about SEO for home inspectors. So we're not going to do any hands-on tutorials in this video, but I'm going to talk about the top-level theory and then a few steps down from there that you absolutely need to understand before you ever waste any of your time on SEO. And it's also good to know, even if you're hiring somebody to do it for you, just so you can kind of figure out if they're doing the right thing for you. So before I dive into this, I just want to cover two terms that I might use throughout this presentation. The first one is a keyword. So a keyword is simply a word or a set of words that you want to show up in Google for, right? So you want to show up for that term in the search engine. That could be something like Chicago home inspector, right? That could be a keyword. Now, a search query, these two often get confused, but the search query is basically the same thing, but it's just from the search engine user's standpoint. So it's just whatever somebody types into Google, that's called a search query, right? And that is actually really important to make that difference between those two, and we'll get to that in this presentation. So we're going to start off with everybody's favorite topic, how to make money, right? And that sounds cliche. And it's important to note that SEO isn't going to be this solution to your business, right? If you have a sales issue, that's usually stemming from more than just your SEO, right? What I see sometimes is inspectors procrastinating on the things they really need to focus on, and then convincing themselves they're being productive because they're doing their own SEO or they're learning to do their own AdWords, which, yes, is good. I'm not going to say don't do that, but I'm going to be blunt and I'm going to say go market to realtors first. If you're just starting out, you need to get some realtors under your belt that are willing to refer you out and make the rounds, go to open houses, drop into offices, do presentations. Even go to like your local networking events and stuff like that. That's going to get you results faster than SEO, right? In AdWords, although AdWords can be instant, there's a high learning curve on it, and there's also a high price tag that comes with those instant results. Now, kind of a tangent, but that is important to know. SEO isn't this holy grail where it's just going to turn your business around and you're going to be super successful overnight, right? That's just not how business works. So if you have that misconception, I hope that you believe me in what I'm saying. I'm not lying to you. I actually offer SEO services professionally to home inspectors, so that would really not be a great business approach, but I do lead from a transparent approach, not a one of BS, let's call it. Now, basically the way you make money with SEO is you want to attract prospects, right? And then you want to convert those people over by them seeing your website or your brand in the search engine and then calling you or emailing you. And then on your end, you want to close the sale, right? You want to take the phone call, figure out what they need, give them a price, close the sale. Okay, that's really it. Now, it's important to note that quality is essentially the biggest way to get to the top faster, right? Google loves quality, and they don't care about you. They don't care about your business. They don't care about me or my business. They don't care about anybody except for the people that are actively using their search engine, right? And they only care about those people when they're actively using their search engine. So basically what I mean by that is those are the people that are giving Google their revenue, right? That's how they make their billions of dollars a year, is through ad revenue, actually. And they have advertisements on their different platforms such as YouTube and Google, right? Now, whenever somebody comes along, let's say they're looking for a Chicago home inspector, they come along and they type into Google Chicago home inspector, right? Now they're going to see a few things. They're going to see the very top positions. Those are what are called AdWords, and that's basically a paid placement. So you have to pay money to be there, and every single time somebody clicks on that link, you get charged money by Google, right? They get paid that. And the next one is called the Maps listings, and that's generally, sometimes that'll show up if you search certain things, and it'll look like a little map, and that's the best place you want to get to, because people can call you right from there. It'll show you results and whatnot. And then the third one is where it's called the organic search, right? So the organic search results, and that's where the websites will appear if you've given Google enough to be happy enough to position your website there, right? So they put the websites there that give the best experience to their customer, right? Because if somebody's constantly coming to your website and leaving right away, Google's on autopilot, so it's done all by an algorithm. They're constantly reevaluating your website, right? If 10 people come by and they go to your website and then they leave right away for a certain keyword, Google's going to question whether or not you really belong in the search engine for that keyword, and they may knock you down maybe to the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth page, and they'll try somebody else there, which could be one of your competitors, right? And then if that person outperforms you, let's say that they had 10 people visit their website, but 6 of them stayed and hung out for a couple minutes, and then the other ones left, that would be performing better than 10 people coming and leaving right away, right? So that's basically, I guess, the user experience, right? And we're going to get to that in a moment, but I have kind of touched on that. So what is a search engine? It's simply a place to get information, right? And it's becoming more and more ingrained in how we work. Most apps and most websites nowadays have search engines built right into them. Whether you think about it as YouTube, that's essentially a search engine. It's just for videos, right? Or Google or Bing, search engine for basically everything. You can find all kinds of information there, from government websites to educational institutions to local businesses to you name it, right? You can find it on there. And the point is to obviously just get access to information in an accessible manner. And basically, from a business owner standpoint, you need to consider the user intent behind search queries, right? Now, what that basically means is, what is somebody looking for when they type something into Google, right? And I'm going to give you the answer. You don't really need to bust your brain over this, but if somebody types in Chicago Home Inspector into Google, there's a really good chance they're looking for a home inspector in Chicago, right? Now, if they type in how to become a home inspector, they're probably not looking for a home inspector, right? It's probably somebody who wants to become a home inspector. So always think, whenever you're choosing your keywords, always think about the user intent. So what is somebody actively thinking about as they type that into Google, right? And that's going to put you ahead of the pack, because a lot of people will target keywords that just never bring them money because they didn't think about the actual user intent behind those keywords, right? Now, you also have to think about the user experience, like I mentioned. You want to make sure that it's good, right? And that's a very broad statement, and I'm not going to make this a huge presentation about user experience, but basically you want so whenever somebody Googles something, they'll be given a bunch of little descriptions and whatnot of what the thing is, right? So you want to make it sure that stands out, and then they'll click on your website from the search engine, right? And you want to have a clean, modern website, and you don't want to make the person have to look for anything, right? You want to make it very, very crystal clear as to where everything is, where they can find it, where can they contact you, your about page, your services, all that stuff. Very, very crystal clear. And you want to ideally, and this is again getting kind of more advanced, but add some things such as social proof, right? So what social proof is, that's something like a testimonial. So if you add a testimonial onto it, it can increase credibility. If you add other things like your credentials, for example, that's another way to, that's called a trust factor, right? So if you say that and you are, rather, not if you say, but if you are a registered home inspector or a certified home inspector and you put your license number on your website, that's a way to build trust with somebody, because then they know that they're getting somebody who's trained and expert, right? So adding some of that stuff helps build what's called your conversions, right? And what a conversion is when somebody lands on your website and then they go and call you. That's it. It's really, really simple. Or they email you, they contact you, they just complete some sort of action that is desirable for your business, right? Now, I know this stuff isn't the most interesting, and this isn't going to be a terribly long video either. I think we're about 10 minutes in. We'll probably go a little bit longer, but stay with me because this stuff is super important. So this is something that a lot of people mess up on, and it's because it didn't used to be this way. So a lot of people who had their websites optimized once upon a time, they're no longer optimized because of Google's constantly changing algorithm, right? And with the algorithm, if you play to a person's if you give them a good experience rather, then you don't need to worry so much about the algorithm because you know that they're having a good experience, okay? So don't get hung up on, oh, Google's algorithm is constantly changing, because yes, it is, but if you do this right from the ground up, you don't have to worry. Now, I'll get off that sidebar and we're going to jump in and talk about pages versus websites, right? So just websites 101, a website is a collection of web pages, right? So usually you have your home page and that'll have links out to all your other pages, right? So you may have a page about radon and mold and your home inspections and commercial inspections. You might have a page on how to contact the business and the About Us page and things like that, right? So the way Google works right now, so this is in 2018, is they rank and they judge individual pages for keywords, right? So what that basically means is you don't want to optimize your entire website for the same keywords. That's actually a detriment to your successful SEO. And I'm not going to go into detail here, but there's something called keyword cannibalization, where it basically, if you put too many the same keywords on different pages, Google has no idea what page should be ranked first, and sometimes they just won't rank any of it, or they'll rank you lower. So you basically want to pick one page, and we'll get to that in a moment, but you pick one page, and then you want to optimize that for a single keyword cluster, right? So the way keywords work nowadays, like Google's getting really, really smart, right? And they're not, like, you don't need to write exactly, like, let's say you wanted to rank for Chicago home inspector, or let's say home inspector Chicago. Let's say that's the keyword you wanted to rank for. You can't, like, I don't care how you spin it, you can't naturally fit that into a sentence and without looking like you're just adding it for the sake of SEO, right? And to be honest, you don't need to. The old school way of doing SEO, you absolutely had to, because it was a big help, right? Nowadays, Google can figure out from just all the content on the page what it's about, basically, right? And again, I'm not going to go into detail because this isn't really a technical tutorial, but just know that. So when I say one keyword plus location per page, what that means is if you wanted to rank for Chicago home inspector, you would prioritize one page for everything related to Chicago and everything related to home inspector, right? And then on the other hand, let's say you wanted to also rank for Chicago mold inspector, that would be a different page on your website, and that page would be all about Chicago and mold, right? Now, hope that makes sense. That's something that that just because a lot of the information out there on the internet right now is dated, and this isn't something that is super common knowledge yet. I think it will be as more and more people catch on to this. But yeah, just do it. Listen to me. This stuff works. We're doing it with all of our clients. We're doing it with our own sites. Yeah. So One thing to note too when you're optimizing your website, and this is really useful if you're doing your own SEO because it gives you a big edge, is your home page is the most powerful page on your website, right? And generally, the reason why is because the majority of links, and again, we're getting technical, and we are actually going to talk about this in a moment, but basically the most links that go back to your website are linking to your home page, right? And basically, I won't go into detail, but it makes it the most powerful page, right? So if you have a Facebook profile, that might link to your home page, right? That's not going to be linking to your about page or your contact page. It's the home page. So a cool trick here for the home inspection industry, because there is one keyword that just completely outperforms every other keyword, is you would want to optimize your home page for your city and then home inspection keywords, right? So home inspector in Chicago IL, in Illinois, Chicago home inspector, all those different variations, you would just talk all about it, right? So enough about that. Another thing to really pay attention to, because you can waste months or years of your life optimizing for SEO and you'll never win if you don't understand this. And that is that Google pays attention to the location, right? So they're watching two things. They're watching the actual user's location. So if they're mobile, then they'll literally give them different search results if they're driving around the city, right? If they search for something on one side of the city and then they go search on the other side of the city, they'll see different things in their search results, right? And those search results are heavily based on the business's actual location, right? Now, this is the part that some people just miss, and they never get told this. And you need to have a Google My Business listing. So that's just the address that you plug into Google when you sign up for your free listing at business.google.com. And that needs to be within the city limits. So it needs to have an actual city address of where you want to rank for, right? So if you're on maybe it takes you, I don't know, half an hour to reach the city limits of Chicago, and so you don't have a Chicago address, but you work full-time in Chicago, get a Chicago address, right? Get a friend, pay somebody, use a church, like whatever. Just figure out a way where you can get an address and get a piece of mail to it so you can verify your Google My Business listing, and then Google's going to see you as relevant to people searching for your service in Chicago, okay? Now, there's lots of different technical indicators. This is one thing that people get tripped up on, and it is the most complicated, but it's also the most technical aspect of SEO, and it's something where you just got to learn it, right? If you're going to learn it, you just got to go through and just bite the bullet and go learn about these things. These aren't necessarily all the indicators, but they're the big ones, and they're the ones that anybody can pretty well figure out with some YouTubing and some Googling of information. So basically how it works is Google sends something called a bot. It's called a Google bot, and they send them to your website, and then the robot actually reads all of the content on your website, right? And if you have an image, let's say you have like a banner on your website and it has a bunch of words on it about home inspection, those need to be actual text on the screen that you can copy and paste, right? So basically it can't be an image if you want the Google bot to be able to read it. The Google bot can only read text at this point. That's changing rapidly, but that's how it works right now for Google's index. So, and then to follow that up, the majority of the things that are listed here come from a website, right? So it doesn't matter what type of website you're using, they'll have ways that you can utilize these different things, basically, right? So for example, a page title, usually whether you have like WordPress or Wix or whatever, or Weebly, it doesn't really matter, then basically you'll have a big title at the top of the page, and that's generally your page title, right? And yeah, so that actually has some of the biggest emphasis and the biggest influence over where you're going to rank. It's one of the biggest factors that Google looks for. But again, I'm going on a tangent. We're not going to get technical in this video. And so, but these are the different things. So your page titles, your meta keywords, your H1 through 6 HTML tags, your bold, italic, underlined text. And when I say meta keywords, I don't mean and again, you need to go and do your research, but this would make sense after you do your research. I don't mean invisible keywords on the page, right? I mean the page title as it appears in Google. But sorry, that's super technical, and you don't really need to know that at this point. So even bolding, putting something in italic or underlining it, kind of gives it emphasis for Google to look at. They'll pay a bit more attention to it. Linking the website appropriately. The way that the Googlebot works is it'll land on whatever page it finds first on your website, but then it'll actually follow all the different links on your website that are literally on that page, right? So if you have a web page that no other page links to, Google may never find it, and then they can't rank it, right, in their search engine. So you can add something called an alt tag to an image. That's basically just text. You can add citations that link back to it. Basically, a citation is like a business directory, right? And you can add that in. That's good for that's really good for home inspectors. You definitely want to focus on citations. I have a really in-depth tutorial on mymarketinspector.com if you want to learn more about citations. That's a whole lesson in itself. And then you got your backlinks. What a backlink is if one website mentions another website, and then you can click on the mention, and then it takes them to that other website. That's called a backlink, right? They're linking to that website. Those are really good. That's actually one of the most powerful ways to influence a website's search engine rank. You also have your optimized content, right? Let me just get rid of this. So basically what that means is you would want content on your website, generally 500 words per page that you want to rank on the page, right? So if you have a homepage about home inspectors in Chicago, then you would want just 500 words of topically relevant, so content that actually relates to home inspection, the home inspection industry, right, on that page. You got XML sitemap. That's an easy plugin. Most a lot of these builders, website builders nowadays, come with that built right into it. You don't even need to do anything with it. The page speed and load time. This is a big one that not a lot of people know about. And if you want to check your page speed or your load time for your website, just head on over to Google and put page speed test. Google it. Google has a free tool, and you can just plug your website into there and check it. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you're mobile friendly. And what that means is that you want to be accessible for somebody using a mobile phone, right? Or a mobile device in general, like an iPad or something like that. Now, the way to test that is you just plug your website into the mobile friendly checker, right? So just type mobile friendly checker into Google, and Google has a software that you can use, and you can just again copy and paste your URL in there, and it'll flat out tell you whether or not it judges your website as mobile friendly or not, right? So that's a big thing about the mobile experience, or the user experience, that's super important, but it's also a ranking factor. So your website is the foundation of SEO, and basically if you have a really crummy website that just looks really, really bad, then the people who land on it, even if you get ranked well, they're going to land on it and they're going to be like, whoa, this looks bad, like, right? It's going to look like it maybe was thrown together overnight, and they're probably not going to call you. In fact, they're probably going to leave right away. And when they leave right away, that gives Google an indicator that your website isn't quality, and then they may actually bump you down systematically in the ranks like we talked about, right? So having a nice looking website, it doesn't need to have fireworks coming out of it. It just needs to be modern, clean and informational, right? It needs to have everything that they're looking for. And so then there's the different WordPress or the different website builders. There's things like WordPress and Drupal and Wix and Squarespace and Weebly, and the list goes on and on and on. There's the GoDaddy builder. There's a million different ones, right? And at the end of the day, they all do the same function, but they all have different capacity to operate differently on the back end. So you take something like the GoDaddy builder. That was specifically built for small business owners that have no idea how to use the internet, and they're probably never going to learn, right? Can you optimize it? Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Will somebody who's running a more robust platform potentially outperform you? Yes, they can, right? If it really came down neck to neck, somebody using a platform like WordPress rather, not Wix. WordPress is the most robust, right? It has the most options. You can change it the most, but the trade-off is that it's more technical, right? You gotta spend time actually learning it. And in the home inspection industry, if you have somebody who's managing it for you, or you're willing to learn, that is the best bet. But honestly, even though you may miss out on some potential opportunities, unless you're living in a hyperactive, competitive area, such as like a large urban area, like Dallas or Chicago, I would honestly opt for going for one of those easier to use builders, because then you're not gonna lose sleep at night every time your WordPress website goes down on you. But we use WordPress with everything we do, and that's just simply because it is the best at the end of the day, although you do need to take a bit of time. It's not rocket science, but you do need to take a bit of time to learn it. Okay? Now, do it yourself or hiring a pro. I get this a lot. There's some people who just say, hey, I'm not touching that stuff. I'm a home inspector, and that's fine. There's other people saying, I don't want to pay somebody money each month, right? Because generally you do need to pay to retain your rankings, because SEO is kind of like king of the hill, right? Where everybody wants to get to the top, but there can actually only be one top person. So the do-it-yourself route is good if you're in a lower competition area. This is a generality, but generally speaking, the lower your population, the lower your competition is going to be. So if you're living in a place with like 300 or 400,000 people or less, you have a pretty good chance of being able to rank your own website if you do a bit of research. And the do-it-yourself route, you need to take that time to learn. You're not going to just sit down and read one thing about how to do your SEO, and it's a process, right? And with the do-it-yourself route, the biggest thing I see that people who are doing their own SEO do that screws them up is they're constantly changing their website because they're bored with it, right? Their customers could care less. The people who land on it could care less. The people who matter, by the way, you don't really matter in this equation. But the business owner is bored with the website, so they change it, right? And every time you change it, Google needs to reassess, where does this fit in, right? So it may have taken Google 3 months to figure out, oh, they're a good fit for page 1. And then you go and change it, and now Google's like, oh, wait a minute, like now what? What's going on now, right? Because at the end of the day, they want to protect their customers, right? Their customers' user experience needs to be good. And every time you do drastic changes on your website, Google is wondering, like were they hacked? Like, is that like somebody else making those changes? Are they changing the entire like direction of the website? Like, what's going on here, right? Why is this happening? And they literally need to do that process all again. The do-it-yourself route is good too if you have like a friend that can coach you, that maybe they've done their own SEO, so that they can basically just point at the little things in your website and be like, yeah, change that, change that, change that. Because honestly, it is that simple, especially in those lower competition areas. And then, or if you just have the money for a consultant, right? That is going to run you a bit of money, but it's going to be a lot cheaper than hiring somebody on a monthly retainer. And then if you're already established and you could not possibly fathom giving up your time to learn this stuff, which is totally fair as a business owner, you should hire somebody. If you're in a super competitive environment, you should hire somebody, because the more competition equals the better possibility of getting better results, right? The more people looking in a certain area, the more potential income you can make on it, right? Or if you're just starting out but you have the money to invest, go that route, because then you can focus more on your realtor marketing. Anyways, guys, that is it. And if there's enough interest, I will shoot more videos like this. We can even get into the nitty-gritty, and I can start showing you guys exactly how to do your own SEO. But I'll let this one slide for now. Anyways, we'll talk soon. Bye.